Welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. Am of course, Sean, and I have with me, I'm meeting all these people from California, thanks to my friend Raquel out there. I have the one, the only Miss Tiffany Fabiani from Enemy of Fate, which is, I've been listening to your tunes since Raquel, I guess, connected us. Why don't you tell my viewers a little bit about your band, what you guys have been up to?
Well, we've originally started as a solo project about close to a year ago. Was never anticipating, writing or producing music, and the opportunity arose, and here we are. So we've morphed now from a solo project a little over a year ago to now we are a full four-piece band. So we're excited to be taking our music out on the road here in the next month and a half.
And I'm assuming the solo project was your solo project, correct?
Yes. Yes, with a great push from my husband.
Well, you know what, and no joking aside, that's always great because sometimes is he part of your band?
He is not. No,
Okay.
he's an encyclopedia of music of all genres. So, and he has that magical ear, and he hears things that are just unbelievable. So, yeah, I love to sing casually, have sung, all my life. And he has just been persistent. Like I needed to get into the studio and do this professionally. So the opportunity arose with one of our business partners. We were chatting about him needing a female vocalist, and my husband kind of leaned over and looked at me during the meeting. He's like, well, we got one right here. And, I'm doing one of these like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing this. So he put me on the spot, and we went back to my house, and our business partner was like, well, show me what you got. So I threw an Adele track on and a Lady Gaga track on, and he swung around and looked at me. He's like, where have you been? He goes, we need to get your ass in the studio. So here we are.
And I what I like about what I heard, because there's so many different. So I play in a band with a female singer. Female singers sometimes have, I don't know what it is. They just got to work a little bit harder. It's ridiculous, but it is what it is, right? Maybe one day the men will have to work a little bit harder. But we'll save that for another day. But when I'm listening to your material, I'm hearing I got some Lady Gaga. I heard that influence. I was truthfully, Raquel didn't tell me what to expect, and I was just expecting, okay, here comes a female singer that's going to do the Cookie Monster thing. Totally not that. Very melodic, very almost sounds trained. I don't know if you have any training per se, but it's a nice clean voice over some really chunky background music. Explain that a little bit, because my viewers will go and find your tracks, but I was pleasantly surprised, if I could say that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's probably not something you anticipate coming out of that, the alt rock, new metal genre. We really wanted it to hit hard, but the message was extremely important for me. So when I was given the opportunity to go into the studio for the very first time, I don't have any formal training. It's just something that's been a passion of mine all throughout my life. And so when I got in the studio and we started working with the producer, and he's like, okay, so what are we doing today?
Right.
And nobody knew that when the opportunity arose and we had put a date to go into the studio on the books, nobody knew that I had privately, in about 30 minutes, written a song for my father. It was our debut single called Dear Dad. And it was a very intimate story. And I felt very compelled to always deliver an authentic story in our music. So you'll hear a lot of storylines, kind of like the Eagles, right? The Eagles are notorious for their beautiful storylines in their songs, and they're legends. So I idolize that, and I appreciate that in the music because I'm a lyric person. And so when I sat down and conveyed the story to the producer, he's like, this is what we need to do. And we need to hit it hard, but it needs to be an authentic story. So we're going to soften it a little bit and kind of go with a darker, more melodic feel. So I'm glad that you caught that.
Oh, right away, like right into the gates. It was like, okay, you know what? Totally not what I expected. And I don't know if ashamed is the right word, but I'm often sometimes expecting to hear an Evanescence-y type, and I didn't hear that either. It was I can't even put my finger on what the influences were, but it was very fresh and new for any genre and any band. So kudos to that. So your first time in the studio, I do a lot of recording. Studio, it can be humbling. It can be very. You go in there, you hear yourself for the first time. It's very common to think that things that you're doing sound good, and sometimes they don't. What was your experience for a first time? Was it nerve wracking? How did you do?
Mine was actually the polar opposite. I had auditioned for The Voice several times a few years prior. And
Okay,
so I walked into that experience with a lot of self-doubt going into the recording studio. And so that was already playing back in my mind. I wasn't good enough for The Voice. I hadn't gotten chosen. It was, I was already setting myself up for failure, which I think so many of us naturally do, is
sure.
that self-doubt kicks in. So when I'm hearing my voice playing back on the recordings, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? Like, why am I, there's no way this is ever going to come together and sound, um, you know, like it will resonate with people. And so the happy flip side of that coin is I feel like we really delivered songs that have bared impact on people that don't have a place to go to talk about their feelings and experiences. And a lot of what I wanted to do was make the uncomfortable comfortable. So you'll find in our tracks moving forward, there's storylines that really hit close to home for me intimately and personally, but can be so relatable for so many on different levels, like with Devil's Prey.
Well, let's talk
There's
about that for a
definitely.
second. So as you said, you're about a month out from that one. 11,000 views on YouTube is what I'm looking at right here on my other screen. Which anybody knows that anybody that does a podcast such as I do, that and we talked about this before we went on. YouTube can be a painful experience. Well, any social media really, to try to grab followers, because it's geared towards getting people to go there and spend money, but it's not geared to helping you kind of set yourself up for success, right? 11,000 views is very impressive in a month. What did you guys do, or your team do, to kind of garner that?
I think just promotion and being very proud and delivering out a message that kind of came full circle and told a story that was deep and dark and impactful, but also I think really it was the message, that you can persevere over those trials and tribulations and you don't have to be stuck. And I wanted people to know that, they aren't alone in their experiences or their situations, whether they're still in those situations. So I think that had a big impact. And being comfortable to share that message out actively through the socials and having opportunities to do interviews with amazing people such as yourself who understand the direction that we're going, just garnered a lot of traction
Um,
on the YouTube channel. So we're very fortunate.
Yeah, and something that you nailed on, and I mean, we weren't going to go here, but you brought it up, so I will. Talking about trials and tribulations, and it's almost like still in this day and age. Up here, we have a thing. It's called Let's Talk. The major phone company in Canada has a day where anybody that sends a text, a portion of the text goes to mental health and those types of things. It's still something that so for some reason people feel shameful to talk about.
Mhm.
It's like I'm the only one that's going through it. Nobody else can be experiencing what I'm experiencing. When in actual fact, probably 99% of the people are. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I mean it's that's probably resonating with people too once they actually get a grasp of what the song covers.
Mhm. We have really genuinely received countless messages privately via DMs. Some have openly shared in the comments thread. I think we have over 100 comments that really celebrate the story and the triumph and overcoming obstacles. And we we have heard many stories about thank you for sharing this experience because I can relate, and they'll tell a little bit about their story and feel comfortable to have a place to go to express. And we as a society just put such a horrible stigma on mental health issues that we need to do a better job in supporting one another when it comes to mental health crisis or domestic violence or narcissistic relationships, toxic relationships, whether it's in the workplace or personal or with a partner, and be comfortable to share our personal experiences. Not everything has to be held behind closed doors because that's not always the safest one. or the healthiest for us. So I feel very passionate that the song delivers a situation that needed to be talked about and continue to be talked about.
Well, kudos, because like I said, I told you earlier, I played a band with a female singer. I've made 2024 my goal to promote a lot more women in terms of, music and shows and those types of things. But I still run into, the guy that's like, what are you doing that for? And it's just like, I'm not going to say it's a dislike for women, but it's almost like that's still that stigma of, oh, you know what? Guys are here, girls are here. And it just, in 2024, it's just such a stupid mindset to have.
Mm-hmm. Well, in response to that, I would say the women can go just as hard as the men. And I have no doubt there are artists like myself that will walk in confidently into this year and do just that.
Well,
So
and,
we're
and,
really
and that's
excited about what we got going on.
and that's what we like to hear, because like I say, it's there's room for everybody. And you
Mm-hmm.
go out and you do your thing, and the only thing you can't control, and it's funny because I've talked to an awful lot of people, you can set your table perfectly. You can't control the timing, and that's the one thing, right? So that happens at its own pace, and unfortunately, that's the thing that will drive us all bananas, because you just can't control how it happens. So before we got on here, I asked you if there was anything that you want to cover, and you told me that you have something coming out this week. So please give us the details.
We are very proud to announce that our third single released through Enemy of Fate is a very proud and humble cover of Breaking Benjamin's Breath. The storyline is quite telling. Again, it's another personal storyline for me, the way I interpret the song, because there's always a vast array on how somebody can interpret and experience in their own lives and reflect it back onto the music that they're listening to. Some I know take that storyline as a, situation around a relationship that isn't healthy. And for me, it was experiences with addiction. And, I lost a brother-in-law, unfortunately, to addiction. And that song, over the last nearly 20 years it's been out, has always hit home for me. And so I wanted to take an opportunity to pay homage and tribute to the brother-in-law that I left, that has left us, and the story that really helped me move through a very sad situation in my life.
And that's,
So
you said
that
this
comes out this Friday.
I was going to say, perfect. Well, that's amazing. So now then you're on another, I guess, thread of promotion, and right back, and I know it's involved in stuff, but I'd like to maybe talk about it. A lot of people think that things just happen. That either you're doing too much, or you're not doing enough, or what have you. It's a lot of work, right? The last stat that I saw is 60 to 70,000 songs per day go on streaming services.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do to separate yourself from the pack? So just tell the viewers what you guys are going to be up to, because I'm sure it's going to be a very arduous process.
Well, we are actually going to be working on a video to release. Are you talking specifically for the single, or just overall as a band?
I would say the single first, and then the band for 2024.
Yeah, we are working on video production right now as we speak for a few of our tracks that are coming out on the EP February 23rd. But for Breath, we're actually doing a very intimate video that encapsulates the storyline and the interpretation of how I convey that message of that song out to the world. Obviously, everybody and their mother is on socials. You can get 20 stories up a day. You can throw them on TikTok, Instagram, but I think the personal interactions and the messages that we convey, and having that personal interaction with people, will kind of rise above the status quo. And we actually plan on getting out on the road. We have our first show here in the next month and a half as a brand new live band. Collectively, again, we started as a solo project, right? So our band is just working to gel, getting the band members up to speed on all the music, and then we will have our first debut show March. And we're already, working on booking shows in through the 2024. So we may be out your way in not too long from now.
Well, there you go. I'm way out in the east coast of Canada. So you want to come out here probably in June or July when it's nice.
Yes, for sure. We'll save the snow for you guys.
Yeah.
Save the snow for the locals.
our climate's very close to Boston, actually. So you can get everything from, December can be 14. Well, actually, it's not 14 degrees. I'd say 65 or 70 degrees, and then it can plummet. So it's just a really bizarre climate, and we're right on the ocean. So, why don't you give a shout out to your band members that you brand new band? How long have you guys been together?
We've been together for about 2 months now. So we just and our newest member, Jerome, is our bassist. Um, all of my players are key, and they are veterans at this. So we have Jerome, who is our bassist. Shout out to Nick Morgan, who is our drummer. He's played in several bands, and he has many years of drumming and doing all the technical stuff that is just a whole nother language for me.
Right.
And then we have an amazing guitarist who picks up our rhythms and our lead guitars. His name is Jordan. He goes by Knox. So we're very fortunate to have them on the team, and they're very excited to be here. So
I'm gonna ask. So I've had the I guess I'll call it fortune. I don't know, some people wouldn't, but I've been picked up by Blabbermouth 13 times last year. Almost every time I was picked up, it had to do with bands using backing tracks. And I'm going to give you my 2 cents on it because I play in a band, two bands that use click tracks. I'm not against using backing tracks. I think it can enhance. I'm not one of these people that, oh, it's dishonorable. Some people just feel if you're doing it, you're cheating. I don't believe that's the case. I mean, if you're totally lip syncing, that's a different story. I think it can add to the performance, can add to the show. Now, having said that, would you guys be using tracks out there when you're playing?
Well, unfortunately, for the amount of production that we have that goes into our music, there is no way I could put, a 10-piece band propped up on a stage to play live, right? So for us and the production that goes behind our music, yes, we will have to use backing tracks to cover the instrumentals that we don't have band members to play.
Well,
So,
and there's no shame in that. And as a drummer, if you were to talk to Nick, that's a skill set that a lot of people can't do. Everybody thinks that it's that's a skill set a lot of people can't do. So as a drummer who does it, anybody that can do it collectively as a band, I have respect for. So no shame in that whatsoever. I think it's fantastic, and obviously it's going to add to your show for your audience.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just unfortunately a technicality. I get the conversations like that's not a natural band, that's too over techy, you're not really playing live. But as a small band, there's just no way right now today that we can get the full production and delivery of the song live. It's an impossibility for us right now. But ask me that question again in a year from now, I might have a different answer.
Well, and it's always approached like it's a new thing, and it's been going on since the 50s and 60s. I mean, they used to do it in TV studios all the time, right? It became, I guess, common fodder. There was a band that played the Whiskey a Go Go that were totally lip syncing, and they got caught. And Eddie Trunk brought it up, and then he brought it up because he thought Kiss was doing it. And now it's just if you go on Blabbermouth, every second story is blah 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 says if you use it's a ridiculous sort of thing. And the new one that they're kind of meandering in there is tuning down for a singer, which is not a new thing. So anybody that's a non-musician, start pointing this stuff out because this is stuff that you have to do sometimes to be able to perform. It's not a
well,
crime.
there's parts in my music for the vocals too, with the backing tracks that they overlap. So we've got a chorus line going into a bridge and there's vocals for both. Well, obviously I don't have two sets of vocal cords. So
Right.
There's going to be occasions where you hear my voice in the background where I'm coming in over top of it because I have to. So, I mean, it's a technical argument, right? It's the semantics of the thing, but I understand why people want, live raw shows. And I'm not opposed to doing that. And I commend people that can and have the ability with their music tracks to do that. But unfortunately for us, we just aren't in a position to do that right now.
And again, it's just as good if you can or you can't. So it's more curiosity because I heard when I was listening to your music, it's almost got an orchestral flair in certain parts, right? And I mean, what the heck do you do? I mean, do you bring up a 30-piece orchestra to do 8 bars? It's
right.
It's silly,
exactly.
Right?
And our tracks that haven't released yet are even more theatrical. So
Right.
there's even more, into the production of the song because they're very, I referenced I don't know if you've heard Ice Nine Kills, Farewell to Flesh. They have just this very theatrical. Well, they're always very theatrical in their music, but there's so much orchestrated in the production of creating that song. And there would
Yeah.
be no way unless I had a, symphony hall to perform in,
Yeah.
to get that many players up on stage to do all the parts.
Well, and then you got to pay them, and you get, it's a whole thing, right?
Yeah, it's a whole ass thing. So,
So help me out. The one, and it's funny because Raquel sent me a number of her bands my way, and I can never quite put my finger on some of their influences. So you, as a singer, your influences might be who, or would be who?
amazingly, although I don't perform and produce this type of music yet, but I am really heavily influenced by the Motown genre. So
Okay.
I have a lot of Aretha Franklin and Gladys Knight and Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Earth, Wind and Fire. That whole era, I think, heavily influenced because that's what I was raised on growing up in the family. And I have a family that loved to gather as a pastime and just sing and karaoke together and just spend time being joyful together. And so that's kind of the base, I think, of my tones. Lady Gaga is a huge influence for me. Excuse me, Amy Lee from Evanescence is also an influence. Adele, Stevie Nicks. I mean, there's so many it would be impossible to narrow down any small handful because they all bear influence, especially if you love their music. They're going to naturally influence the direction that you go with your vocals.
Well, here's one thing I will say, and I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting here chatting with you, but you managed to put all those influences in the blender and come out and have your own sound. Because again, when I heard your voice, I was expecting a few different things that just kind of never materialized for me, which was, and I'm one of those people, I hate to say it, where I might make my mind up beforehand, and I didn't get a chance to do that. So that was great.
Good.
Last question, young lady, before we go. Where are my viewers going to find out about you guys, your band, what you're doing, when you're touring, everything's coming out?
You can follow us on all of our socials. We're also on all the streaming platforms, Apple, Amazon, Spotify. We're probably busiest on Spotify. But you can follow us on all the socials at Enemy of Fate Official.
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this. It was a pleasure to meet you, and I will definitely check in with you guys again sometime this year and see how it's going, because I quite like what I heard.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks.